All right, take two. My didn't have my microphone fully plugged in, so I have to do the video again. Yeah, gotta love it when that happens. All right, anyway, so today's video is how many guitars should you buy and what kind of guitars should you buy? So I did the last video was was called something along the lines of make your second guitar a pro guitar. Well, once let's say you've been playing for a while. Okay, you bought your first guitar, your first electric guitar, whatever, and you're going to stick with it, whatever, and you got a good guitar, and now you've upgraded to your first pro guitar. Pro meaning it's a guitar that suits all your needs. It's not necessarily based on price, but typically a pro guitar is going to cost a little bit more than a your regular guitar. But whatever you pay for it doesn't matter here. But let's say you're going to pay what an average pro guitar is going to be, right around $1,000. So give or take. So we'll say between $1,000 and $1,500 or $1,600 is what you're going to be buying, right? So let's say you got your first pro guitar. Now you're starting to play live and everything, and you're trying to decide what like how many guitars you should have. Like you're probably going to want to have at least one backup guitar for live. So maybe two guitars will do it for you. Maybe three, right? So that takes care of the live thing. So that's pretty easy. But I've seen like many YouTube videos. For example, I watched some videos last night of those little shorts, the YouTube shorts where you got to film vertically with your phone, which I hate vertical videos. But anyway, so the little YouTube shorts, and I was watching this girl play, and I've got my girls and guitars folder here for you for pictures. If you'd rather look at that than my face. So anyway, I'm watching this girl, really good player, everything like that, and I noticed that she had like a relatively inexpensive guitar, right? Okay, no big deal. It's more about the playing than the music is from within. The instrument is the tool, and the quality of the instrument is the icing on the cake, right? And the thing is that I noticed like she played 5 different guitars, and they were all like kind of lower budget guitars. And I'm thinking, and I made this point in the last video, is like you buy all these like $300, $400, $500 guitars. By the time you get about 5 of them, like what kind of pro guitar could you have bought? Or maybe you probably could have bought 2 pro guitars with that kind of money, right? So like I say, once you get going, don't buy cheap guitars anymore, unless it's something you really, 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 really want. But most of the time, what happens with the cheap guitars is you buy them, and you'll go back to playing your better guitar all the time. You know what I mean? So, once the fad wears off, and then it just sits there collecting dust. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't have the sound, doesn't have the playability. It looks cool, but whatever. And I see a lot of guys do that where they. There's one guy on YouTube. His channel seems fairly big, whatever, and he's got like 30 guitars there, and they're all like $300, $400, $500 guitars and stuff like that. And I think okay, the guy's a guitar collector clearly, but I'm like, it's cool to say you have that many guitars, but those guitars don't give you anything new, especially if you're buying the same type of guitar, metalhead guitars, for example, or like country rock guitars. An example would be like my Jackson Rhodes Flying V's. Those are metal guitars. My LTD 8-string, that's a metal guitar. My Gibson SGs, they kind of do everything, but they're classic rock, classic metal, blues, whatever. You could sort of say country, but you get the idea. Strats and Telecasters, typically, country, blues, classic rock, even up to light hard rock. You know what I mean? So you can categorize guitars, like Gretsch guitars, like Birch Hollow body guitars. You can do classic rock with those, some punk, whatever. They're not really metal guitars, right? They do jazz, they do, country, they do whatever. Like think your Gretsch, right? So when you're thinking about how many guitars you want to get and how many you want to buy, like again, it's easy to fall in love with this guitar, that guitar, and whatever. And there's so many guitars you can buy. Like if you look at every brand, like if you look at Jackson's, for example, they make about 300 different models or something like that. I think they make more models of guitar than any other brand. Like every time you go on to like a website of a guitar shop or guitar store, and you look at by brand. Okay, from Gibson you'll see maybe about 100 different guitars. From Ibanez you might see like 100 and some odd different guitars. Then you'll see like Kramer, it'll be like under 100. You'll see from ESP LTD you might see like nearly 100. And then you look at you know, Jackson is like 300-400 guitars to choose from. They just have so much. But anyway, the thing I noticed, like I say, is rather than buying five of the same guitar, or like having five Stratocasters or five SGs or five Les Pauls or five Ibanez, gems or something like that. Which I'm not saying you shouldn't have that, but I'm just saying if you're buying it thinking, like understanding that you're buying the same guitar over and over again, so that you get the same sound. Like maybe, like for example, you're buying them. What the hell's the name of the band? I can't think of the guitar player's name is Satchel. They're the funny band that's always like what the hell are they called? They're like a spoof glam band. What the hell are they called? Anyway, they always sing like dirty lyrics and stuff like that. They're really funny. Uh, anyway, brain fart. But anyway, yeah, like the Satchel, the guitar player. Okay, he's doing like dressed in purple glam. Well, he has a signature guitar that's got like purple and tiger stripe. Next day he's in yellow glam. He's got yellow and tiger stripe. Next day he's in green. He's got green and tiger stripe. So he buys a guitar. Like his signature guitars are all the same. So he's playing, the different guitars, but they're all the same guitar. It's just they're in different colors to match his uniform. So that's, most people probably not going to be doing that. Ingve, he plays basically Stratocasters and only Stratocasters. Although I have seen videos of him playing Les Pauls, or a Les Paul anyway. And he's like, cool guitar. But I don't think he's going to, like him, his thing is the Stratocaster. Angus Young, the guy's got like 1,000 SGs, something like that. Like he owns like 1,000 of them, but he takes like four on tour, 3 or 4 of them on tour, and that's it. But his thing is the SG. So he's probably Angus Young's probably got like a Fender Telecaster or Stratocaster hiding in a closet, but don't tell anybody. You know what I mean? Because that's their guitar genre that they play and they're known for. Tony Iommi with the SGs, but he's got like different versions of SGs. They're not all Gibsons. He has some custom made ones, but he also used to play BC Rich a bit too. Zach Wilde, pretty much, known for the Les Pauls, but he's got these Deans. He's got a few other cool guitars, right? But you're probably never going to see Zach Wilde with a Strat type of thing, right? It's not really his thing. But let's say you're more of a recording musician, and you're not about like, for example, let's say you're like a death metal band where you're going to have pretty much all pointy guitars, right? You're probably not going to have a Telecaster, Stratocaster, or like a pink guitar or something like that, like a glam metal guitar. You're probably going to have something that suits your band. Like you see all the metal bands, they all play like flat black guitars, satin, like my LTD. And a lot of it is because that's the guitar that you want, but it only comes in these either gloss black or flat black, or maybe once in a while they'll be in a different color, right? For whatever. So all these metal bands are all like the black metal bands. They don't play bright pink or green fluorescent guitars. Although it would be kind of funny. See these guys all dressed up in like black metal, face paint and everything like that, everything black, and then you just have like a fluorescent purple guitar or pink guitar or green guitar. That'd be it would be funny. It would be really funny. Just have one guy, like the bass player or one guitar player, do that, just like where everybody else is all black and you just got like this one fluorescent pink guitar on the stage. I think that'd be hilarious. But that's me. I would do something like that, right? So yeah, so costume okay, most people are not going to be buying based on their costume or whatever. Um, I do tend to like Explorers and Flying V's and SGs seem to be my favorite guitar shapes for some reason. I've never really been into the Strat body thing a lot. Like I've liked them and I've had them, but it's like I like the pointy guitars, right? Uh, so for me, I look for guitars that have my pointy guitars. But then when it comes to recording, it doesn't matter what the guitar looks like. It's what can it do, right? And that makes you think differently about what guitar you're going to pick up. Because, for example, if I'm playing in a studio and I need a guitar, like I can only afford one guitar, and it has to do everything. Well, I'm looking at probably two different guitars that are really gonna, maybe even three. But if I'm going by just like, okay, I want something with the best sound I can get, made out of the best materials, and pretty much, like I say, there's thousands of guitars you could buy, right? Pretty much, if you look at the recipe of the guitar, you'd be surprised how many guitars you wouldn't buy. If you're not a believer in tone woods, don't worry about it. If you can't hear the difference, don't worry about it. But if you can hear the difference, it pretty much takes all the basswood body, Natoya body, and poplar body guitars out of the, like out of the mix. You know what I mean? Like it's just like these guitars, you don't want them because they're not going to produce the sounds. So then you're searching for mahogany bodied and alder bodied guitars and swamp ash or ash guitars. I find those are the guitars that have the best sound, right? Typically, not all the time, but nine. Like if you hear all these guys that talk about how they don't believe in tone woods, and mostly metal guys that play straight through the amp can usually hear the difference because it's not the same as high gain, right? So like you can hear the guitar a little bit more. Um, but almost every one of them will say Tonewood's bullshit, but then they show you their favorite guitars, and they're almost all made out of mahogany. Almost every one of them, without exception. Like it's funny because they hear the difference, they just don't realize they're hearing the difference, right? Why does this guitar have such a savage mid-range and really heavy sound? It's because it's mahogany. That's why. That's like it's a thing, right? Why is this guitar so cool and bright like Eddie Van Hale's? Because it's alder bodied. Alder bodied guitars are very bright, right? So are Swamp Ash. Well, Swamp Ash not as bright, but Swamp Ash and Ash guitars are like in between mahogany, in between alder bodied. So you start honing down your guitars based on that, and then you start looking at the fingerboards. Rosewood being the most mid-ranged and aggressive, ebony being probably the smoothest sounding and deep but with a nice really high brilliance, almost like a sculpted mid, and then maple nice and bright, more mid-ranged. Yeah, so you start picking guitars based on that. Then you pick guitars based on scale length, right? Okay, well, the 26 and a half ranged 8-string guitar is going to sound different from my 24 and 3/4 Gibson, right? So that'll give you something different. So, again, now you're starting to get into variations. Single coils versus humbuckers, hollow bodies versus, solid body. So really, if you just wanted 4 different sounds, because there's gonna like most guitars are gonna be just variations of, especially in this day and age. Almost every guitar is really a metalhead, super jumbo frets, 25 and a half scale, humbuckers, fixed bridge or Floyd, right? And I know there's more than that out there, but typically those are going to be the guitar sounds you're going to get. So then you got to really start thinking, what would make, if you were to record something, how would you make this guitar stand out from the other guitar? Well, let's say you take my Gibson SG61 reissue, okay? Great guitar, phenomenal guitar, it's been my dream guitar forever, and I've had it for, a good while now, 13 years, 14 years. But that guitar doesn't do everything. It does almost everything I like. It can do a bit of everything, but it doesn't do everything. It doesn't do modern metal sounds perfectly. It does classic metal, you know what I mean? It does that well, but it doesn't do the modern metal sounds well. It's always going to sound like a vintage guitar, right? So you get that guitar, okay, and you use that for something in the mix. And then you grab the 26.5 scale 8 string and you do something with that in the mix. So now you got two guitars that will just, no matter what you do, they'll stand out from each other. Like, even if you were to play them through the same amp with the same setting, everything like that, you would still get two distinctive sounding guitars. So now it makes sense to have those two guitars, right? Now let's say, okay, well, now I got my two rock metal guitars, but I want a really modern metal guitar. Enters my Jackson RR5T Flying V, which that guitar is just phenomenal. It gives me my modern metal sound. It sounds similar to the SG, but it's 25.5 scale, so it's a little bit different. Would you pick out the Gibson from the Jackson in a mix? If you listen to it long enough, you will. There's just characteristics that pop out, from a 25.5 scale, from a 24.5, three-quarter scale. It's not that much of a difference, but it is a difference. So let's say I use the SG for the rhythm part and I use the Jackson for the riffs and the lead part. You'll hear that modernness of the Jackson. So now I got three guitars that make real good sense, right? But now let's say I want something completely different. Something that doesn't sound like either of them. Well, enter a Fender Stratocaster of some sort, which I don't have one. I do plan on getting a Strat at some point. Like, I want one, I don't want one, because I'm not a Stratocaster guy. I've never been. I've played some really awesome Strats, like that Ingve Strat, for example, in the beginning of the video. That thing is awesome. Another awesome Strat, I've played the Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat, the darkest sounding Stratocaster money can buy. Like, it's a mahogany body, rosewood fingerboard, maple neck. It's a pretty dark sounding guitar. Just listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan, then go listen to any other guy playing a Strat. Like, listen to Eric Johnson, listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now, I know Eric Johnson uses more effects, but it's a darker sounding guitar. Listen to the Ingve guitar, and then listen to the Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar. The Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar, the guitar itself, the pickups aren't as hot, but it's a really dark sounding guitar. It's super dark. Yeah, so that would be, even with that guitar, it would still stand out from the other three guitars I mentioned. So let's say I don't want the dark sounding Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar, and I want a brighter sound. Well, maybe I go to the Ingve guitar. It's still a metalhead guitar, but it's darker sounding. But I think the Ingve Strat is the hottest sounding, maybe next to the Eric Clapton Stratocaster, which is probably the most versatile Stratocaster on the planet. Is the Eric Clapton one, because it's active pickups. You got your 5-way switching normal, but you've also got this very tone. The tone button, it basically, it's got a tone booster on it, kind of like the BB King guitar. I can't remember how many. So you're getting like 25, 30 sounds out of this one Stratocaster. It's really crazy. Very awesome guitar. Not cheap. But if you wanted the Stratocaster that did everything, it's that one. So if you go with that, you get a pretty modern sound. The next one, if you wanted more of a traditional sound but still modern, the Eric Johnson Stratocaster. Really, really nice. And then if you want to go more traditional, then you can go back to like the 50 style Stratocasters. Or any of the player Strats will sound like your typical Stratocaster. Now, if you add a Stratocaster or a Telecaster in the fourth place out of these four guitars mentioned, the Jackson Flying V, RR5T, my Gibson SG61 reissue, or you could substitute that with some sort of Gibson Les Paul or Epiphone Les Paul or whatever, and then the LTD 8-string. There's four completely different sounding guitars. Now let's add a fifth one. Let's say, okay, well, I can't quite get the jazz box thing going there. So you go out and either buy an Ibanez Artcore series or a hollow body, which I've had one before, and you put some flat wound strings on it, or like a Gretsch, we'll say. I use the big name brands just because everybody knows what I'm talking about. So let's say you get a Gretsch hollow body, birch hollow body, with flat wound strings. Well, none of those other four guitars are going to sound anywhere near what that guitar is going to sound like. You will be able to pick it out in a mix 100% every time, no matter what's going on in the background. So there's 5 different types of electric guitars that you could buy that would be completely distinctive from each other. I mean, yes, you could make them sort of sound the same, but at the end of the day, when you take those guitars' attributes and maximize them, you have 5 guitars that will sound, no matter what you do, you'll never get the bubbliness sound out of a that you get out of a Stratocaster out of a metalhead guitar. Like you just will not get that, even though they're the same scale length. Like my Jackson Flying V will never be a country guitar. It just will never do the twang thing. It just doesn't do it. It does punch you in the face, sizzle your brain shredding, and rock your face off kind of thing. Turn your brain into mush and let it slide out of your ear and onto the floor, and you will love it. But it doesn't do country. It doesn't do country. You could play in a country band with it, but it doesn't do country. Especially with those Duncan distortions in there, they're pretty savage. It just doesn't do that. It does metalhead very well. It can even do modern heavy stuff with drop tunings, but it's kind of a bit of a bright sounding guitar. But like my 8-string, if I put that thing into drop tunings, okay, I know tunings could completely change the dynamic of your star, but like getting my SG into double drop A, I've done it. The strings almost fall off the guitar though, because of the short scaling. It just doesn't do double drop A. You know what I mean? Like you can get to the tuning, but you got almost no string tension when you get there, right? Double drop A, which I haven't done yet, but if you do it on the 8-string with a 26.5 scale, like your jazz hollow body guitar is not going to do that. Your Fender Stratocaster is not going to do that. You know what I mean? The Les Paul is not going to do that, pretty much. So again, different tools for different jobs, right? But let's talk about the hollow body. Well, the hollow body with round wound jazz strings on there, stunning in the actual like the harmonics you're going to get. I've played flat wound strings for many years. I haven't in a while, but I've had them on my SGs. They're just pure tone, whatever. So that's how I would pick guitars. So how many should you have? Well, you could like I say, you can categorize it into so many subcategories. Like for example, let's say I have 25.5 scale length. Okay, so for 25.5 scale length metal guitars, I would want one with a ebony fingerboard, which I have, one with a rosewood fingerboard, one with a maple fingerboard. 24 fret, 22 fret, doesn't really matter. Maybe the one 2 fixed bridges and or you do 3 Floyd Roses, 3 fixed bridges. There's 6 guitars right there. Now you're just getting variations of the same guitar at this point, right? Some brighter, some a little darker. But at the end of the day, would you need all 6 of them? Probably not. Let's say, okay, well, extended range guitars. Okay, let's say you're playing in a country band on Wednesday, but you're playing in a death metal band or symphonic metal band on Friday. Okay, so Wednesday you grab the Stratocaster, you know what I mean, and the SG and the Les Paul and the Telecaster. Okay, you go do that. So there's 4 guitars. If you take 2 out of those 4 guitars that you like, you can cut down some money if you want. The Friday comes along, you're going to play in the death metal band. You grab your 7-string 25.5 scale and your 8-string 26.5 scale or 27, 28 inch scale, fan, fret, whatever, and you've got total different sounds again. So there's another 2-3 guitars there. So do you need all that? Okay, and then on Sunday afternoon you go and do jazz box stuff at the church with your big hollow body, playing along with the piano, the organ player, right? Okay, and then you got that guitar. Maybe you got 2 of them, whatever. So you can see what I mean. Like, it's more of what genre you're going to play will kind of, like if you really want to master the genre, you know what I mean? Like if you want to play country, you want twangy guitars. You don't need those big heavy humbuckers. Maybe the single coils don't quite do it for you, and humbuckers are too much. Okay, go with the P90 sound. You know what I mean? Like those like humbucker and single coil and a half kind of thing. So there's a lot of things you can do for different sounds, and I myself am more a fan of rock and metal and stuff like that, but I also like to be able to have versatility. So let's say, okay, you can't buy a lot of guitars. You're not going to go into the extended range guitar sound. Jazz box is never going to be your thing, but you just need a guitar that's going to do everything. Well, guitars you should look at. If you want like bang for the buck, I think one of the best guitars, just in terms of the materials it's made out of, we're talking alder body, maple fingerboard, maple neck, or if you want that same guitar in rosewood fingerboard, ebony fingerboard, you can get it in all that, and plus with a Floyd Rose and six-way switching. Well, it's the Charvel, San Dimas models, right? Look at those things. Those things are, you can get those in fixed bridge as well, and they are a bit pricey, but you're getting a lot of guitar for the money. You know what I mean? Like, so you're getting a guitar that can be your heavy metal guitar. It can be your Stratocaster. It might not do everything perfectly, but it does everything really well. You buy two of those, and then that's all the guitars you'll need. Maybe you're not into Charvels. Okay, you want the 24th fret. Start looking at some of the upper end Ibanez's. Because one thing about the Ibanez guitars is they just, especially the Prestige line, they play so bloody well. Ibanez, it doesn't matter if you buy a $300 Ibanez or you buy a $3,000 Ibanez. They all play really well. Jacksons are kind of the same, where they just kind of all play really well. They're not all perfect. And again, those quality control issues with every brand, not so much you just get what you pay for. Just be wary of what you're buying. With Ibanez, they use a lot of cheap materials on some of their more expensive guitars. So if it's not made out of mahogany, not made out of alder or ash, watch how much you're paying for it. Because like poplar body guitars, they start off very cheap, right? So if it's like, okay, it's a poplar body guitar with a bolt-on neck, maple fingerboard, and a maple, neck, and a what do you call it, a poplar body, and it just has really good pickups in it. Well, I mean, that's my JS32. It's a $400 guitar. So if you're, gonna compare my Jackson JS32 to a guitar that's $1,600, you got to ask yourself, well, what is that extra money going towards? You know what I mean? So like, I won't buy a guitar over $1,000 with a poplar body. No thanks. Unless there's something really spectacular about it. No thanks. It's just, to me, you're getting screwed. If it's got mahogany, great. I mean, look, you can get guitars, Epiphones with ebony fingerboards, rosewood fingerboards, for under $1,000, and mahogany body and neck. You know what I mean? That makes those things a really good buy. You know what I mean? The only thing I find with the Epiphones, as much as I love the brand, I always found their guitars a little bit muddy in comparison to the Gibsons, and I don't know what the difference is. Because like I've compared, I've played so many Gibsons over the years. I've only owned two, but I've played probably 1,000 Les Pauls in my lifetime. So ranging from 1968 to now. So like I've played all the 90s Les Pauls. I've played all the played a lot of pre Les Pauls before the lightweight technology came in, where they take the Les Paul and they cut like 9 holes underneath the top, so it lightens up the guitar a bit. I've played those. I've played old Les Paul customs that were just like 14-pound boat anchors. But the best Les Paul I've ever heard in my life was a 1968 Studio. It was unbelievable how good that guitar sounded. It was the most bizarre looking Les Paul with these big gigantic soap bar pickups, but what a great guitar. What a great guitar. I've played the 78 Fender Telecaster, an original 78 Telecaster with the semi-hollow body. Love that guitar so much. If I bought a Telecaster, that's definitely one of my favorite ones ever. I wish they would just have it just with single coils, because I think that would be just the cherry. So the 78, again, these semi-hollow bodies and stuff like that, if you're buying them as a clean guitar, it makes sense. If you're buying them for a metal guitar, probably not going to be the guitar you go for, but, whatever. So anyway, you get the idea. You got lots of choice out there, but are you just going to buy, variations of the same metalhead guitar, or are you going to buy, the same variations of the blues guitar, or Strats or whatever? Like having 5 Stratocasters, does that make sense? You know what I mean? If you're just a Stratocaster guy, maybe. You know what I mean? Like Steve Ray Vaughan only played Stratocasters pretty much, right? Uh, he played his own Stratocaster. That was it. Buddy Guy plays his own polka dotted Stratocaster, which I got to try the Buddy Guy Stratocaster. It's really cool. The Ingve Strats, you know what I mean? Like these are original Stratocasters that he's had. These are 60s and 70s Stratocasters and he's only got a handful of them that he uses. The rest, like he doesn't bother with new guitars. So think of a guy like Ingve playing the same maybe 6 or 8 guitars that he has. Like I mean, it's not like the guy can't afford one of every model, but like I would love to be that um, that happy with my guitar purchase that I didn't need to buy a whole bunch of other guitars, right? And to be honest with you, that's been my Gibson SGs because I'm a big fan of SGs. Now I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but you can say that about any guitar, right? But if they're your cup of tea and it's the guitar you want, yeah, having 2 SGs makes sense for me because will I buy a third one? Probably, but am I getting anything different? Like let's say I buy an SG Modern, I've got my SG3, my SG61 reissue, and then I buy an SG Standard. Okay, there's slight different pickups for some of them or whatever, and then I get an SG with the P90s in it. Okay, sure, there's five, 6 SGs, but they're all going to sound like SGs, just variations of, right? So and you could do that, and you'll get guys like I say with Les Pauls or Jacksons or flying, Ibanez's or whatever, Deans, whatever, and they got 5 guitars that are pretty much producing the same thing, even if they're different brands. The formula of these guitars is the same scale length, they're the same this, they're the same Duncans in this one, same Duncans in that one, and they're wondering why they can't get a different sound because you have the same guitar. So how many guitars do you need, right? So yeah, I guess I'm beating a dead horse now. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that video. Hopefully, hopefully the audio worked this time. Yeah, so let me know what guitars you have, and like if you were to do, like, so I'm thinking about this. If somebody is watching the video to the end, why make a video like this? Well, I've been playing guitar for 45 years, okay, and really seriously since I was probably 10 years old. And when I got my first electric guitar, at 13, the guitars I've had from then to now, I've had, like I say, about 46 or 48 guitars. If you add in every little guitar, every little, thing I have, most of them junk. But I've had a lot of good guitars. So why don't I have a lot of these guitars anymore? Because they didn't serve the need fully, right? Like there was something that was, like buying a $500 guitar that was okay. There's the hollow body. I'll try it, see if I like it. Okay, not really using the thing. The thing's sitting there for about a year. Okay, fine. Once like the newness wears off, and it just the guitar sits there, you wasted your money. You know what I mean? And I try not to do that because I'm not a very wealthy guy to begin with. But when I get a guitar, like for example, I just bought the Flying V because I wanted a really good sounding metalhead guitar, and that guitar basically I bought it based on the recipe of what it was. I wanted a fixed bridge. I wanted 24 fret, but I could live with 22 fret guitars. There's some advantages to 22 fret guitars that I'll talk about in other videos. It had the type of pickups I wanted. I obviously love Flying V, so it was all the guitar I need. And I'm absolutely loving that guitar. I've only had it for about a month and a half. We'll see where I'm at in 6 months. But I've now had my 8-string for about 6 months, and I'm starting to really become an 8-string player. And I don't say that lightly. When I say 8-string player, I mean the guitar's starting to become fluent for me, where when I play it, I'm not missing the strings. I'm not, I don't feel like I'm trying to force to play the scale length or anything like that. Like it's starting to feel natural for me. But it's also bringing out different styles of playing, right? So I bought a 8-string. If I would have bought a cheaper 8-string, I know I would have regretted it because I tried cheaper 8-strings and 7-strings and whatever. And originally I was going to get a 7-string, but I went to the 8-string and instead, I just jumped right to the 8 string. I don't have a 7 string. But what I noticed was that if you buy an okay quality guitar, you can live with it for a while, and then once you know you really like it, you'll either buy another 8 string. I do plan on having a couple of 8 strings because, like I say, I want to have that, heavy metal band that does that symphonic metal, whatever, uh, really heavy sound. I want that. So I'll probably get 2 or 3 of those 8 strings, but I'm not going to buy, like I bought what you would call a professional guitar, but just the low, like sub $1,000, or well, it came up $1,040 with tax now, but it was a $900 guitar before tax. And I knew that guitar was professional enough, mahogany body, mahogany neck, Jabota fingerboard. Not the biggest fan of the Jabota fingerboards, but it's not bad. It's not horrible. Um, and I'm playing this guitar, and I'm like, okay, well, let's say I played it for about a couple of weeks. Say, okay, 8 string guitars are just not my thing. That's a lot of money, but it's not so much money that you wouldn't recoup most of it on a resale. That said, I would not sell this guitar until I had a better quality 8 string. But I'm not going to buy another cheap 8 string. You know what I mean? I'm going to buy, the best 8 string I can possibly afford. And if it takes me a lot longer to save up for that, or whatever, in my case, pay it off, you know, um, then so be it. But I'll get the better quality, better playability, whatever, regardless of what the price is. But that said, that's a guitar that I'm going to grow into over. I'm going to have for years. You know what I mean? Like my SGs, I have them for years. I can play those things blindfolded. You know what I mean? Upside down, blindfolded, standing on my head. You know what I mean? Like, it's because I'm so fluent, because I know the guitar so well. Uh, but it's also, the other thing is it's a guitar that has suited me so well that I didn't need to buy a whole bunch of other guitars. So if someone said, okay, you're only ever going to have one guitar, and let's say it's my SG61 reissue, I could live with that guitar. You know what I mean? I could live with that guitar for a long, long time, because because that guitar suited my needs for such a long time. But if I want to branch out into other genres, like I say, the heavy metal, or if I want to go country, then I got to start thinking about different guitars. So anyway, that's my take on it. You guys tell me what you think. You guys tell me what you guys like, and what you have, and would you buy what you have over again? And if you were going to only keep a handful of guitars, what would they be? That kind of stuff. All right, anyway, all links down below to help support the channel. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself, be true to others. Always, always do the right thing. Have yourselves a great day, eh?